It is about 8:30 in the morning here on Thursday, July 24th, 2025, and I'm out here standing in the shade of this big, beautiful tree in the western part of this row. And then once I turn the camera on, all the sheep come looking at me. All the cows want to say hi. Maybe it's because I put out some dog food. For my dog, who's been faithfully guarding the sheep here, he's been living under this tree for a while. And some of the other dogs have joined him. This dog's been through the dallisgrass. The seeds on the dallisgrass get sticky. I'll show you what it does in my side-by-side. You can see all this stuff on here. It's just these sticky seeds, and it's pretty sticky stuff. I'm sure it's sweet. I remember that in autumn time it starts to smell like alcohol out there. Like it starts to ferment. But so his fur is all sticky. Now if he jumps in the pond, it'll come off, but you know, he probably doesn't even know he's dirty. The sheep get that way too. You can probably find a couple sheep that are all sticky, you know. But anyway, wanted to share a little story. This isn't about me bragging about how strong my sheep are, or you know, complaining about how weak they are or anything. It's a fairly common thing that happens. It's called prolapse. So I had a sheep. We're about ready to give birth here. Some of these lambs should be dropping any day now. Especially we're like a week away from August. So I should be getting lambs soon. But one of the sheep that was fairly well along in her pregnancy, and the rule I have for sheep is if I think they're about to give birth, then it's like another month. You know, they tend to do that. This is number 10, my best cow. But one of the sheep's had prolapse, and because of my arrangement here, I can't get out there and just grab a sheep. I'd have to set up some kind of pen or move them into the pen. It's a lot of stress on the animals, and I made a decision that I'm not going to chase the sheep. I'm not going to put them under stress just because one of them is sick or injured. It's kind of not worth. I think it does more damage. My personal opinion is I think it does more damage to try to catch that one sheep and treat it. And besides, oftentimes the sheep just recover themselves. You know, and when I have the number of sheep I plan on having, I won't be able to treat. It just would be a sheer numbers thing, you know. Anyway, the poor sheep had like prolapse. But when she got up and walked away, it sucked it right back in. So the sheep, I thought, oh, she's fine. Anyway, come back a couple days later, and it's out again, and it's swollen. And, you know, I make a very gentle attempt to try to grab her, but I wasn't able to grab her. But a couple days ago, or was it yesterday? It's probably 2 days ago. She was lying down on her side. Her leg was in the air, and I was like, oh, she's getting close to being done for. So I just reached down gently and grabbed her leg, and I got her, right? So I put a lasso around her leg to make sure she didn't run away. Washed off my hands really good, washed off the prolapse really good, stuck it back in, and then it came out again. And I was like, I don't know what to do. So I talked with my friends that do sheep, and they did alpacas. So alpacas are pretty similar to sheep, I guess. But what the treatment is, it's actually pretty easy. Is you tie a rope around the body of the animal, and you crisscross it at you know, the rear end where the prolapse comes out, and you kind of make it secure so that the sheep can still move around and do stuff. But the prolapse, if it pokes out, it'll be butt against that rope, and hopefully the sheep will suck it back in. There's various devices you can use too. They're fairly cheap, and I'm gonna get some just to keep them on hand, so if I do catch a sheep with prolapse. But one of the issues that I wasn't aware of is when I pushed the prolapse back in, she started going pee. And she peed like 6 or 7 times. I was like, that's weird. Sheep don't really pee that much. You know, they don't drink a lot of water. They don't pee that much. Hey! I think the cows were getting close to his food, because I put some food out there for him. Yeah, that's what it was. In which case, that's probably the right behavior to bark at the cows, keep them away from the food. I'm glad there's no sheep there. But anyway, the long and the short of it is that there's some things I can keep on hand, so if I do catch an animal that's in distress like that, I can do something about it. and that kind of stuff is pretty cheap. My rule of thumb is I don't buy stuff in advance until I need it. And the only reason I'm doing that is not because I'm poor. It's because I think a lot of stuff people have is just for one-off cases. You know, in this case, is it worth the 35, 50 bucks or whatever to have the equipment on hand to treat prolapse? And I think the answer is yes. It's a fairly easy thing to treat. It does involve the comfort of the animal. It's pretty much a guaranteed cure. The issue is that once the animal gets prolapse, she's not going to be breeding again. If I can get the lambs out of her, I will. If I can't, then I'm gonna, somehow take care of her. But I don't want her to be sold as a breeding ewe. So when I go to the sale barn to sell her, I'm going to tell the guy, or I'm going to call before I go down there and say, how do I mark this sheep so nobody tries to breed her? So only somebody stupid would try to breed her, and make it clear that they're buying a sheep that's only good for meat, that shouldn't be bred. Anyway, so that's kind of the story there about prolapse, but it's a story of so many different diseases and problems that the sheep and the animals get. He's pretty upset with the cows for some reason. He's on edge. Anyway, all right. Long and the short of the story is this. Okay, I can go out there and buy equipment and treatments for the 10,000 different diseases that sheep get. The thing is, it's going to cost a lot of money, and I'm not going to know what to do with it. And if I do use the equipment, I might be using it wrong. The treatments might not be a sure shot. There's a lot of variables there, and so I have the mindset of just like keeping things as simple as possible. And I was very prepared for if I wasn't able to catch her for whatever reason, or if by the time I was able to catch her it was too late for her, I was prepared for the inevitable. It's a fact that I'm used to now with sheep, and I hate to admit that, but that's kind of like with cows. When you lose a cow, it's a big deal, but with the sheep, it's kind of like it's a line item on your budget, because you're going to lose a lot of sheep, even if you're really good at it. And you can talk to the guys that are really good at it, and they might share with you that number. That's pretty disheartening. I think that's the reason why a lot of people don't like to do sheep, is because sheep are nice. I love sheep. They're just neat animals. They're different than cows, and there's an emotional connection that I have with the sheep, and so it really does hurt me when I see them suffering or getting sick and stuff like that. I just wish there was something I can do to prevent all that, but there's not. Even if you have the best treatments and best vaccines or whatever, they're still going to get sick from time to time. And then there's a question of whether your treatments are causing the diseases or not, and then there's a question of whether you should be breeding out the sick animals or culling the sick animals, the ones that get sick, and hoping that your genetics improve over time. There's all kinds of issues. There's no solid yes/no answers, and I think the people that are out there saying that there are yes/no answers, that absolutely vaccines are the best, or absolutely vaccines are killing your animals, those people don't know what they're talking about, and you can't really rely on them when they make absolute statements like that. There's error bars around everything. There's no sure shots, especially when it comes to medicine and animal care and stuff like that. So that's kind of my message. But yeah, so prolapse, if I had a way that I can push a button and catch a sheep without bothering the rest of the sheep, I'd be catching them all. I don't have that way. I do plan on getting a mobile pen, so I can set it up here in the pasture and run the sheep through it. And I think if they got used to that pen system, there'll be way less stress. Hey, you leave those cows alone. They're going to kick you in the head and you're going to die. You won't be happy then, will you? You're not protecting me. I don't know why you think you're protecting me from the cows. They're not going to hurt me. Anyway, once I get that mobile sheep system, which is a huge investment, I think it's $5,000 or $10,000, but once I get that system, run the sheep through it regularly, probably once a week, maybe once every other week. And then I'll be able to identify hoof issues sooner. When I get the number of sheep I want, I'll be culling more aggressively. So rather than like trim the hooves of a sheep, I might just take all the ones with hoof issues and load them up and sell them at the sale barn. If somebody else wants to deal with hoof issues, they're allowed to do that, but I don't want to deal with hoof issues. Just keep breeding out the animals that cause problems. Get the sheep familiar to being touched. Some people notice that when you put an animal in a barn, in a stall, and you're out there every day working on the animal, like feeding it vitamins or giving it shots or something like that, or treating some wound, they all of a sudden allow you to get close to them and touch them, and they don't get stressed when you get close to them anymore. My animals are semi-feral. I want them to be out on pasture full time. I don't want them in stalls and barns. I don't want them to get used to human contact. That's not the goal, right? The goal is to have them eat as much food as possible and spend all their time on pasture, living as natural life as they possibly can. So anyway, guys, have a great day. Take care and bye-bye.